Right, we'll make a start then, gentlemen and ladies. Apologies for absence. Any apologies?
No, none.
No,
We're all here. No, there can't be any. Any declaration of interests?
Well, I think I'd better declare an interest in the Part B job. Perhaps I'd better give my reasons in Part B, but if you want to do it now, I'm happy to do it now.
No, I'd do it in Part B, I think.
Okay.
Part B.
And I may have to declare interest as Secretary of the Operatic Society because the item about town hall major events, I may be speaking also on behalf of the.
Well, if
same
John is
applies to-
declaring that, I'm chair of. I mean, that rules out at least 3 of us, doesn't it? It rules
It
out
does.
all.
No, it doesn't. We may not have prejudicial interest, but we just announce them.
Yeah.
So that it's better to declare than not, isn't it?
That's it.
Okay.
Minutes of the last meeting. Do we have a proposal that they were correct? And a second. Thank you very much. John proposed, now seconded. Now, this massive report, Gareth, for the town hall.
Well, it wouldn't be massive if I hadn't attached the appendix, but I thought it was worth putting the costings in.
Yeah.
So you can see exactly how it's put together. As I said in the report, Chambers have been working with Grosvenor, that's it, sorry, on this. And obviously, as you know, Grosvenor did the works before on the Western Roofs, as it was called. They came in about 38,000, so these have come in as they expected, somewhat higher, but there are quite more extensive works because of the intricacy of the bell tower. We're also getting painting done of the bell tower at the same time, and the internal works included as well. So they'll repair the roof, or sorry, ceiling of the balcony as well. So there's all those costs are included. So it's not just the roof works. There's also then a contingent. Well, there is a contingency in there.
Sorry, guys, can I just stop you there for a second? I'm in the wrong view here. This chair mode isn't good because I don't know whether John had his hand was up then or not.
No, I was just fiddling with my volume because it went.
The gallery there.
Okay,
Gallery
I'm just going to change views anyway because
I'm just brushing the spider out the pot, you know.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out anyway, Chair. Yeah, so
back to normal view now.
yeah. So what I've done in essence is I've attached the schedule. The Royal Bay, Chambers Conservation think it's fair given what is required, and they've assessed it against all sorts of industry standards. So they haven't, in their email, there's nothing they wouldn't have expected in these costs. So in essence, as we've decided to suspend standing orders, this is the and financial regulations, we can go ahead with this work on the basis it's an emergency, and definitely want to move as soon as possible now because of the oncoming weather seasons. So as you can see from the budget provision, the project cost is just over 50, well, nearly 57,000, isn't it? And then with the Chambers conservation fees, we're talking about 58,317. And obviously one way we could have funded it would be using the project cost centre we've got, repairs, capital works, the repair and renewal cost centre, taking some from there and using all our asset reserves. But I just think that's exposing us a bit if we've used all our reserves. So what I've done in the report is I've identified underspends that we are aware of already. The ground maintenance contract, we've done the summer planting. We would have done a winter planting, but given the fact that some of our planters will be in store and that the whole street's going to be dug up, it would seem a bit pointless to get some planting done. It may be difficult for them to get in and do the planting. So I'm suggesting once we've finished paying for the winter planting and watering that we take some of that money for this project. Similarly, Christmas illuminations, we can on that in the next report, but it's going to be difficult again to have all the illuminations up because of, as we know, some have got to come down at on the bridge. And the idea this year was to start upgrading some of those illuminations, but I think with this, the priority really would be again to just pay for the contracted works for this year, which should be erecting whichever ones we can, and then the remainder again would then be available for this project. Similarly, insurance, we budgeted quite high for insurance. If you remember, we did the building valuation and it came in, and we've revalued with the insurers, but it wasn't as high as expected. So there's a £1,500 underspend there. And as you know, we were fortunate to get a discount on our NNDR, non-domestic rates. So therefore, there should be about £5,000 in that budget. So table 3.4 shows the breakdown, which then leaves some in asset reserves instead of taking the whole of the 30, what was it from the previous 30 odd thousand. It leaves us some reserves then, asset reserves, should anything happen, say, I don't know, God forbid, as it were, another disaster with trees on the recreation ground, which would need some work, because that's not cheap if we're getting into groundworks. So what our recommendation is, given that we suspended standing orders, this is the cost we've got. To proceed, we would need to transfer the money from reserves, 23,600, via the remaining from the cost centres you've got control of, and we'd have to request the 5,000 and 1,500 from the council, because that's not in your daily work to move around.
Thank you, Gareth. John Palmer.
It's just a query, Gareth. Under general powers of competence, can we borrow money to do work on this?
Well, we can borrow anyway. We don't need a general power of competence, but it would take months. It's a very, very stringent procedure with the Welsh Government and Public Works loan boards, and it would take quite, I think it would, we probably wouldn't be able to start until Christmas if we started going down that road.
Okay.
So,
and Mel.
Does this do the whole of the roof now, or is it just still part of the roof?
This would be the bulk of the roof above the tower. The main roof itself is okay. The big pitched roof is very good. So this would be the area above the tower and those gullies or valleys, lead work in there, and then some of the roof going above, sort of backwards from the tower. And then, as you can see, they put it in a sum for a cherry picker then to go on ground to pick up all the other faults identified, like the
saw them.
The moss that was on top of the flat roofs, and get all those done. So, I mean, it can't guarantee that something won't happen again, but this should guarantee the integrity of the vast majority of the roof now, because the main roof, fortunately, is in good condition.
And how much does that leave us in our asset reserves then, Gareth, and when we take this out?
Just lost a bit of paper. Well, you would have 34,600, and we're going to take 23, so that's about
11 grand.
10,000. So we've still got some, because we've got the chain bridge and other things, so that should anything untoward happen. And we don't want to deplete it, having just built it up. It would be crazy to have nothing left.
Thank you, Gareth.
Sean?
Thank you, Chair.
What sort of timescales are we looking at? How long do we think this will take?
I think it's about 6 to 8 weeks.
And do we have a start date?
Well, there's I mean, I've said to carry on, in essence, to start speaking. I've said to the chambers that obviously we would like to make the start, and that I was just coming to this committee to make sure that we can get the money together. So they will have spoken to them on the proviso that if we can't find the money tonight, we'll stop. But they would have already started speaking to them. So I'm fairly confident they will. I'll email chambers straight away after this meeting, and then they'll be starting then.
Right. What's the impact for the 2020? Because obviously the scaffolding up. John's shaking his head.
Well, the scaffolding access will be maintained. I think you can see it says
right.
There'll be a small area. Something I just thought of today is we're obviously going to have to let Ben Wilcox-Jones and that team know, because there will be scaffolding on the edge of the town hall. So that the sooner we can get that up and down, the better, really, because that contract is September.
Okay.
If we can they can do it to 4 to 6 weeks, it shouldn't really have an effect. But,
yeah.
We'll have to
I mean, the other question was the impact to users, because if they're taking off the whole roof, then is the ceiling going to be compromised with water and things? And obviously we don't want any more damage.
Well, from the experience with them last time, to be honest, you hardly knew they were there, and yet they went on, and I think if you look at the video footage that Councillor Keddy kindly provided, they've done a damn good job on that roof. They did the whole of that roof, and there was no further leakages. So as I said, they're a pretty competent company, so I'm fairly confident that they're going to address the significant leaks first of all, I would have thought, and then the lead work will be dependent on the weather anyway. So.
Right. I think you've done well in identifying these places where some money can come from. I think that's a really good job.
Thank you, John. Thank you, guys. Councillor Haddy.
Just a quick thing from what the comments that Charles just made. Most of the scaffolding, I understand, won't be on the Castle Street side anyway. Most of it will be to the side and to the rear. So anything that 2020 may be doing shouldn't impact on what we're planning. The other thing is that although it will strip our asset management reserves down pretty low, if the worst comes to the worst, it doesn't strip the council down to low. We still have cash reserves, and although it would be better not to take our general reserves down too low, you have to balance that against the possible ingress and the cost of not doing anything as a result of anything they might discover. So I don't think that we're going to get any nasty surprises, are we? In which case it should come in on budget, and presumably there are contingencies within that costing for unforeseen things. So hopefully it will come in slightly less than pigs might fly, of course, but we can only keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you, John.
Chambers.
Can I propose that we go with a recommendation then?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I place to second that.
Excellent.
Against?
Anybody against now? Super. We'll have a dry balcony.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Castle Street improvements.
Yeah, following on from the meeting, just a few things to pick up really. But it's been a fairly short report. The first one we got to be, there's a typo here, should be without an agreement, not with an agreement. But as it stands, we've got no agreement with the county for this works. And I think it was Jane Valentine asked where were we with the agreement. So I have pointed out that I contacted well, funnily enough, I said, well, I've spoken to Neville, and Neville actually left that day we were meeting. He'd left the council on that day, apparently, so I'm not quite sure where we are, but I just want you to appreciate that, this works might go ahead, and we won't have a formal arrangement or agreement in place, and as long as you're happy with that, that's the first thing.
Councillor Haddy would like to say something on that, I think.
Well, 3.2, you talk about the requesting site of a lease. I don't think it's quite as formal as a lease, is it? It's really just a memorandum of understanding between us and the county that we're giving them effect permission to do work on our land at their expense.
Yeah, and I think it's to say who does what and retention and all that we need to make sure of, because we don't want to, if something does crack, who's going to repair it? So it's just that we've not had anything. So you have to take it is a slight risk, but we do get a free surface on our curtilage, which we wouldn't get otherwise. So I just feel I got to point that out really.
Mhm.
I pinched a bit of this from Councillor Keddy, you would have seen, because he's far superior knowledge on electrics than me. The next one are the structures on the D bridge. Obviously, it's good news all around really. The new structures will be far more robust, and therefore we've got these clamped round, the two like D-shaped planters with the reservoir that fold either side of the lamp standards, as it were, and then there's the bracket underneath and a piece of metal around. So we will be able to obviously replace those and put them back up again. We will have to buy new brackets and whatever, but that's not an excessive amount. So that is positive news. The other one then is the fact that we've got to remove the catenary. And again, as I said, that's not necessarily a problem. Particularly as we would have been erecting lights on them soon. So I've already spoken to our contractor to say we'd like him to take them down, in effect, install them. So that's in train. And then I'm going to try and get as many of the illuminations up in September, so that when, again, not going to be interfering with anything in the streets or any problems. So that isn't again anything substantial. So we can let the county council know that we can do that. The notice board is the one that really we have to make some of a decision on. And as Councillor Keddy correctly pointed out after the meeting, it either stays in place, we relocate it to another site, or we remove and dispose of it to allow the tree pit to go instead. So, well, the second one I would allow a tree pit to go in as well, obviously, because it's not the go to the other side. So,
Councillor Mile.
Well, sort of just going to the notice board, which I think is the main thing, you know, for me, I would prefer there to be a tree in place of that notice board. I think we can, I know we won't have the money this year, but next year we can put up a nice, you know, we've got a website, we've got the council website, we can maybe do something with that board that's outside the town hall and put some sort of a screen in there. I'm sure it's not beyond us to do something electronic rather than something archaic there. I mean, trivia was a notice on a 3 crossroads, wasn't it? Well, 3 roads crossed. I think we can move on from that, really. I know it's been useful in the past, but you know, it's more and more going to social media, isn't it? And I dare say we can always put some signs up in the council window or something. But for me, I think I'd get rid of that notice board. It obscures the front of the building anyway.
You're right there now. One thing, we were away last weekend, and in an estate agent's in Bangor, there's a touch pad attached to the rear of the window, and behind that is a screen. So the screen itself is protected, and this touchpad was very, very sensitive and very, very good. So that box that we've got there by the town hall is almost up to scratch if we just put some plate glass in it instead of the glass we got there with a screen behind it. I think it's very, very effective. John Palmer.
Are you talking about the one next to the doors to the town hall?
Yes.
Yeah.
The scruffy one?
Yes.
No.
Which could be tidied up.
Yeah,
Talking,
yeah.
what's under discussion is the standalone illuminated double-sided. We're talking about
Archaic thing.
Yeah.
the for my Penneth, what we were it was discussed generally on the day. To the right of the town hall door, as you stand looking at it, you can have quite a decent touchscreen there or something. And if the working group on the internet comes through in due time, I mean, we don't even need a hardwire connection into the office. It can all be done over the Wi-Fi. But to have something that is dynamic, as suggested by Councillor Keddy just now, with the ability for an individual to question it and get the information they require. Plus, it means that we can be a bit more up to date than some of the stuff that's currently in the rather snazzy 1960s repaired notice board that we have with flicking neon tube. Half of which is to do with the pavilion, nothing to do with the town council at all, or the town hall. So I think the proposition to C, remove it and dispose of it, which we can all stand to attention as it disappears down the road in the back of the skip, and the idea of having a tree, particularly if they're going to match the trees that we've currently got. I forget what they're called, autumn gold or something, aren't they? Liquid amber. Yeah. To match the ones over the road in Centenary Square, it will unify the whole area. So I think that would be my preference.
And now,
I'd like to second that, and I'd also like to say that I think the money that is in the kitty for the tree would mean that we could put a bigger tree in than that's on the square. I think they budgeted about £5,000 or something for the tree even. So, there could be a decent sized tree in there already, which would be great, I think.
For what tree? Because I thought we spent it on the square, didn't we? The £3,000 that we had in the kitty.
No, I think Councillor Mile means the County Council's kitty.
Oh.
The County Council's kitty is, I think, got a bit of spare in it for a bigger tree, I think.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
okay, Sean.
I don't know that you want a bigger tree there because it's sort of a pinch point with the mailbox and the railings from Wingert's. I think having a bigger tree there, you're sort of possibly causing problems.
Well, it would only be a bit bigger than the ones on the square, but it would start off bigger, but it would be trimmed. I mean, it's more manageable. It'll look better. What we do need to look at is the pruning of the tree that's already there.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I don't think that's something we're going to have to discuss in the future, but it's not on the agenda for today.
No, quite right.
We'll have to
Smaller trees are easier to establish, though.
Okay.
These trees that we're talking about, Sean, are tub grown specifically for this sort of job. I mean, we didn't have any problem establishing the Centenary Square ones, did we?
No, but you did use quite a bit of our water.
Sean, you've got a very good relationship with Jane Valance, and I'm sure you can get her to put whatever you want in that space.
I don't know that I've got a relationship with Jane.
Well, okay.
I'm happy to nick down with some watering cans.
And John thought his begonias with the end of it.
Yes.
We've had a proposal. So we've had a proposal and a second.
Yeah.
Any counter proposal or anything?
No,
Anybody against?
I think the notice board is better got rid of.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Can we not sell it and gain £100?
I think if you get rid of it without having to pay to have it taken away, it's a good deal.
It's rusted through the bottom.
And then just the final thing, just for confirmation. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about the drop curb, primarily because I think we didn't have the up-to-date plans, but Jane did confirm that there would be a parking bay, so I think that would be acceptable to allow loading and unloading.
Was that only a half parking bay, though, a half deck?
Yeah, it can't. By the looks of it, it can't go all the way in, can it? Because of the root system of the tree.
But it's
not just going to cause problems in Castle Street anyway.
Well, what will happen, Shan, I think what will happen there is people will pull onto the pavement so that the vehicle, when they're unloading, is totally off the road. You won't stop them doing that, I don't think.
No. I think these are items that are outside our realm, though, because
yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So just a summary then, that you're happy to proceed even if we don't get to an agreement. You're quite happy with We'll let them know that we will be taking down the catenary, and we've got that in train. Tree, not planter. Okay, thank you very much. Brilliant. Sorry, John's question.
John.
Yeah, it's. I know it's not on the agenda, but just for information, Gareth, you know the bottom set of lights was broken. Has that been repaired before it goes up, or is it to be repaired?
It's usually what normally happens is we put them up, we have storm wherever, and then storm whatever rattles them, and the connectors get pulled apart. So then, you know, by which time the cherry picker's gone, and it costs a fortune to come back. So we're hopeful that when they go back up, they will. We're going to have to tape it a bit harder or something to stop that, because they join in the centre.
Yeah.
The connectors get a bit loose because they start rattling in the wind.
It's embarrassing last Christmas.
Yeah.
But
I don't think it's a substantial failure. It's just the connector.
okay, excellent.
So we'll make sure of that, and if not, well, we probably, as I say, we can not put it up at all because we'll have much depleted.
We can change the connectors for lock connectors, twist lock.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they're going to be up longer as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
On a more general point, before we decided we're going to commute the expenditure that would have been upgraded some of the system, but at some point we need to consider the replacements, and the one that's currently up there, the Dolly Ploughen, I think it says, doesn't it? The problem is with that type of sign, it only reads correctly when you're approaching it from one side.
Yeah.
That sign is designed not to hang across a road, but against the building. So the whole thing needs to be reviewed, but not now. But
yeah,
we'll use what we've got.
I mean, the contract is up for renewal next year, so I think we should go for a company to erect and hire in going forward. It might cost a bit more, but you know, a lot of those lights were second hand when we had them, and then we bought. You know, they were ex sort of. We were paying very little on hire, and then we bought them outright. So they're 15, 20-year-olds, and I think going forward, the renting in would probably be a better solution, and then, you know, guarantee they go up and they work, and have a company then that has to, if they do fail, has to come back and will have their own cherry picker to sort things out. So,
and we could change them every year.
Yes, you could have a different style or whatever. Yeah. But obviously that's a cost implication, but we'd have to look at that.
That's something we can consider next year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll get that as an agenda item for our next meeting, if you like.
Yeah. Okay. Next item is Remembrance Sunday.
Yeah.
Service.
Shall I have a quick word on this one, Gareth? Because I asked to put this one on because last year. Previous year we had although he's given you the preamble here with what happened before, I asked about to put this on because we did have a reasonable one in 2019, and it ran quite smoothly, but of course 2020 was a bit of a shock horror because we couldn't hold a council event last year because of COVID-19 regulations, which made it illegal to actually hold one, especially if there was more than 6 people, and also those 6 had to be socially distanced a minimum of 2 meters. So the whole thing was a no-no. Everybody's just frozen up. Are you all back again? Yep.
Yeah.
As long as you can still hear me. So we cancelled from our point of view. And as mayor, I laid a wreath on the arms display on behalf of the council as a solitary bod. However, in breach of our recommendations and the Royal British Legion's recommendations, they went ahead with a full parade anyway, and so they were totally breaking the law. But that doesn't matter as far as we're concerned, because it wasn't our event. But generally speaking, Remembrance Sunday is our event. Not the parade up and down the street, but what happens on Centenary Square. So bearing in mind that they're digging up Castle Street, by November it'll be fairly well advanced. Bearing in mind, I believe the clerk has already applied for a road closure, which has not so far been granted, because they're holding back on that because they don't know where we're going to be. I thought it would be prudent for the Remembrance Sunday working group to be resurrected, to make sure that things run smoothly. So hence the need for putting it on the agenda with a more reduced clientele than last time.
Yeah.
That's the background to it.
Excellent.
Sorry, Gareth.
Any comments on it?
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, just to confirm what Councillor Hadley said, you know, we've made the application for that and the food festival, and both have been kicked back on the grounds of the roadworks. So, although I have spoken to Ben Wilcox-Jones, it sort of assures us that he has had wants as many things to go on as possible, and that's why I suggest that we include him, the principal engineer, on a new group, so that we can have a direct link. Because as it stands, the highway team, the streetworks team, have not approved Howard's closure. So it's, and I think I will send in that picture, the very first one taken off the top of Barclays Bank, because I don't think they realise how many people turn up. And if you've got the road dug out.
It'd be very useful to see a schedule of works as well, with some time scales on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sure that will be forthcoming, you know, well, as soon as possible, I guess.
I did mention it to Jane.
Yeah.
So the recommendation is that that small group now reforms under the chairmanship of Councillor Keddy, and that you appoint one other person from the group member to be on that group as well.
I see how that works now. Yeah. So, do we have to make it go ahead first? I do we have a proposal that goes ahead?
I propose that the working group goes ahead.
And a second.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Thank you. So, I have to now appoint somebody.
Or somebody has to put their name forward and others agree.
Is it from this group or from the main council group?
No, from this group.
From the asset management group.
If nobody else,
I'm happy
nobody else,
to. Unless John, I'd be more than happy for you to do it.
I just heard a volunteer. You can always pull us in anyway, anytime, can't you?
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be counting on your experience, John.
Oh dear.
So sorry, who have we got? Councillor John Hadley, yeah?
That was John Palmer.
Councillor Keddy is Melvin Mile has put his name forward, and there was general agreement that he was probably suitable.
Councillor Palmer.
I'm not volunteering.
Okay. Councillor Mile, then.
Can we look at potentially a contingency? If it's not, if the square isn't accessible.
Well, the square will be accessible because I mean, de facto, they're not going to dig up Bridge Street and Castle Street simultaneously. They've got to maintain traffic flow.
That's fine then.
So they won't be touching the Centenary Square at all.
No.
What will be at jeopardy is the parade, and if they can't have a parade, well, that's something that British Legion will have to deal with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
to the Hand Hotel and disappear as usual.
I mean, obviously the pavement on Castle Street and Bridge Street will be affected. So the off our site could be affected, which obviously, as I say, that would have implications if we got a lot of people turning up, but then if it's cordoned off, it's cordoned off. But I think we need to just make sure that they're aware exactly the number of people that turn up, and particularly as we couldn't do one last year, I think it's going to be.
Well, the newly formed subcommittee now will have to do a risk assessment on that.
The other thing, sorry, Councillor Palmer, the other thing is force majeure has reared its head in the past, and if 400 people turn up, whether there's a road closure or not, de facto the road is closed because it's full of people. So
yeah, I think you're right. If you send that picture of from the, taken from Barclays Bank,
Yeah.
that will put the frighteners on them.
Oh.
Okay.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes, it's just we're talking about Centenary Square. I mentioned it briefly before, and I know perhaps I should have said more about it, put it forward. Mel Lawrence had a lot of abuse because from a motorcyclist who parked his motorcycle on the square, and whether we need, I don't like lots of signs, but whether we need a no parking sign somewhere around there, perhaps whether we do it later, discuss it later on. I just wanted to flag it up.
Okay.
We do need to look at that, I think, Gareth, don't we?
Yeah, Charlie's pretty good. Charlie takes no nonsense. Chases people around town until she finds them. So she, they're not very pleasant people. So some are very apologetic, others are very arrogant. But I don't really want a proliferation of signs. That's the
No, I don't like it. But if we can avoid confrontation, it's better, isn't it?
But something perhaps saying Centenary Square pedestrian access only, so by default there'd be no vehicles on there. So because it might be beneficial to give it, actually identify the name on a plaque somewhere and then put it on there. So there are other ways of doing it without sticking signs.
Have we lost Sean Glenn Jones, by the way?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay then, so we're good to go on to town hall major events, which
Yeah.
could be excluding two of us.
Sorry about this, it's me again. I asked the clerk to put this item on the agenda because back in July of 2018, the then asset management agreed that we had an annual meeting to coordinate the bookings of major events in the town hall.
Oh, yeah.
And that generally was going to be in January, but it wasn't specifically put down as January. The reason for that was that there are some events which are well known in advance, and this is why I declared my interest as a secretary of the Operatic Society. As for instance, there is an operatic young'uns production which is tied in with the spring half term, and there's an operatic main production which is dependent on licensing arrangements. There's a 20 club thing again, which is around similar sort of times. There's the International Stesvod, there's the Comedy Club, there's the fringe events. These are dates that sometimes need to be decided well in advance. So it wasn't only just sorting it out for the year, but it was sorting it out for the next 2 years, because a lot of contractual things run several years in advance. Certainly operatic licenses maybe 2 years in advance, and I'm sure some of your bookings for the fringe might. Looks like Sian is back waiting.
Yeah, she just texted me actually to say she's coming.
So we seem to be taking bookings again, but there's been no coordinating meeting. So just to prevent any problems occurring, I suggest that we reinstate, sorry, not reinstate, but take up what we'd agreed to do, and that is to have a coordination of bookings in the town hall. Thank you.
I'm back.
Hooray!
Yay! Sorry.
Missed the best bit.
Yeah.
Just to point out, it's not that we haven't done it. We have tried, and Sian will know. She's been in for hours with Charlie a couple of years back, trying to arrange bookings and potentially avoid clashes with others. The difficulty is, not everybody at the same time of year knows what their commitments are. So we do obviously have a rough idea when people are coming in, but we haven't got a problem with trying to coordinate the meeting. But obviously, if people can't attend, then unfortunately, if they come in late and it's a double booking, then it's we just have to say, well, you had the opportunity to come to coordinate a meeting and make sure these things didn't happen, because it's very difficult. Charlie, spent hours and hours on this to try and ensure that you know, and other regular users, so dance classes would never seem to get pushed out at key times, so they get a bit upset. So it's a balance between, you know, allowing I mean, Val can be quite accepting of it, but sometimes Julie isn't, shall we say. So, you know, it's not, and you know, we are getting more and more one-off regular bookings as well. So it means that you've got to balance all those against the bigger events. But I think you know, if we can try it again in December, I think December would be a good time for following year, and then just see how it pans out. But if people can't attend, then you know, we can't go on forever trying to.
So you don't have to attend. You just have to register your interest, and you have to register your dates. And just booking 1 year in advance, you've missed the point. That is, you need to do it 2 years in advance.
Yeah, that's fine, John. But you know, some time, you know, if we get dates that clash, then you know, it's an email exchange.
Well, yes, but if there are dates that clash, this meeting will sort it out. That's the problem. You only get dates when you accept firm bookings, and then it's a problem.
John Palmer.
How will this be? How will groups be notified, or will it be? How will we know when this meeting is coming up?
Well, we invited everybody last time to let them know that there would be a meeting, and we need the information by that meeting.
Can the Christmas festival be invited, please?
Yeah, fine.
The whole idea is to avoid clashes.
Yeah.
And smooth it and lessen conflict, which should work. And it was agreed, as I say, in July 2018. So it's not something we're setting up. It's something we should be adhering to.
It's also very handy for the likes of Comedy Club and Dot Cinema, where we tend to have the first Friday of the month. Dot Cinema have the second and fourth Fridays of the month. Then, if we know the operatic 20 club dates beforehand, then we can do things to move our bookings, so we don't have that clash. And we can manage it with when you're set building, rehearsing, but obviously we can't manage it on a show night.
No.
So that'd be great. And so we have a proposal to start them again, the next meeting in December, letting everybody know well in advance.
Yeah, will do.
Yeah, I propose that.
And John Palmer seconded. Anybody against?
I'm not against it. Is this for meeting December, for meeting 2023 schedule, not 2022 schedule?
2022 and 2023.
So for 2 years in advance, and then if we
and
continue,
it's a rolling 2 years.
Yeah, continue it every year then after.
So it's 2 years. It's 2 years in advance, because obviously it's not enough notice for anything that's on in the first quarter of 2022.
No, they should already
be in the book, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 2023 primarily.
That's it.
Well, and 2022, because I mean, there's what you just said, the first quarter, and there's the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They need to be sorted out.
And do we think once a year to do that is enough? Yeah.
Well, you should really get in the habit of doing it well in advance.
I quite agree.
I think twice a year is better.
Well, I don't disagree with that, Sean.
Okay, should we go December, August?
Yep.
And it's quiet in the August.
Yeah.
Well, we'll start off in December anyway and see how we get on.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Excellent. And we just need to, sorry, John Palmer seconded it. Thank you very much.
Your report now, Councillor Clement.
My report, yes. Because of all these latest COVID things and everything, when we had the latest town hall information booking, it seemed that there was a little bit of a mismatch between information, contradictory information and stuff. And I just thought that to ease Gareth / Charlie's burden, if we hire out the hall, then surely the person hiring it should be responsible for all that. So they can write their own risk assessments and designate the building whatever they want it to be. So as I put in 2 examples, if the council hire the building for a consultation, then it would be a public building, and under the state at the moment, there would be face masks everywhere. No social distancing, because that's all gone through the window. And then if we wanted a party there, we've designated a hospitality where there's no face mask needed. And that way, it takes the writing of rules every time they change away from the town council and makes life a lot easier. The other thing is, if we wanted to keep some sort of control over it, then the second proposal from me would be to have a set of rules for each condition that's there. Now there's 2, there's possibly 3 at the moment, but again, that's 2 or 3 sets of rules that we've got to keep updating without reason, really. We might not have any bookings, and we've had to update the rules. So I don't know what you think. That's my thoughts on it. Councillor Haddy.
It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that under the new COVID-19 regulations, for an event, it's the responsibility of the organisation who are holding it to provide a risk assessment and to minimise COVID, the chance of COVID spread. And so ultimately, if we as a town council organise a Northern Soul night, we would have to have the risk assessment, and we would have to enforce the regulations as we saw them.
Yes.
But if we hire it, the hall, to whoever, as you pointed out, the responsibility for that lies with them, not us.
Exactly.
And in 3 weeks' time, the whole thing may change anyway. Either way, it may become more stringent or less stringent.
Yeah.
So to have a blanket set of rules, I think, is a little bit of a problem, particularly as we have different hiring conditions. The dance group, for example, they know exactly who's coming. It's not open to the public, and they are, in effect, a private party.
Yeah.
So what may apply to them would be different
To the opera.
To a Christmas fair, if the church wanted to hold their Christmas fair in the town hall, which they don't, I don't suppose. But that would be a different circumstance. So It's a tricky one, this one, but I think an overriding condition of booking is going to put people off, to be honest, and unnecessarily so.
We have to, unfortunately, the role we of the council, as a provider of venue, has to statutory duty to a risk assessment. So our basic risk assessment is the one that says we've put hand sanitizers at certain places, we put signs up, which can start coming down now, and a one-way system, and the one-way system was to go up the right-hand side of the lift to go into the auditorium, left if you're using the balcony, and then everybody would exit down through the auditorium and down the stage steps.
There's a major problem with that straight away. We've got people up and down those stairs all the time. You can't do a one-way system like that.
They're supposed to adhere to a one-way system. That is
You can't.
Whether they can't or not, it says that if you look at the mitigating circumstances, one-way systems, and whether they do or not,
but Gareth, it's impossible. That's what I'm saying.
It's once they're upstairs. If it was if people are on the balcony, they're on the balcony.
You're talking about a certain event where the people are in for the event and then leave at the end. These are coming and going throughout the night.
Yeah, well, they still have to adhere to a one-way system.
They can't, because somebody's just coming in and somebody's leaving. Where's the one way? They're going both ways at the same time.
They go down the back stairs onto Parade Street. That's the way out, and then they'll come back up from the main stairs. That's the one-way system.
What about the balcony?
The balcony, they go up the stairs to the left and then come down the stairs by the bar.
Down the stairs from the left and going up to the balcony on the left.
Well, they have to go round. They have to go back out and come back in. That's the one-way system. So if you decide to leave to have a cigarette and you go down from the balcony, you would go downstairs, across the auditorium, down the side of the stage, out onto Parade Street, have your cigarette. Then you have to come back and come in and go back up to the balcony on the left-hand side of the.
You're saying
So that's the one place.
So basically, you're sending everybody in our event past the changing rooms for all our guests. Our guest stars on the stage.
If they're all going to leave at once, yes, but you know that's
no, because they'll be there all night.
Yeah, but that is the one-way system that's in. And that
obviously,
hang on. It was installed at a time when COVID regulations were different, and all the other major places that I've attended recently, like Plasmada or Splash Magic, they're removing their one-way systems because they're no longer required. You know, the risk assessment is what guides you on the basis of the likelihood of any of your people catching COVID-19, and we have a duty, as you rightly say, to try and minimise that.
Yeah.
But only if it's in use as a public building, and it wouldn't be if it was a private event.
No, I can see, Gareth. I can see where you're coming from on the council has to write a risk assessment, but that's for employees using the building, isn't it?
It's for the use of the building, full stop. So the generic one is ours, and then it's I think we're talking about the same thing, because then you've now got these sector-specific scorecards.
Yes.
For events, and I think if that sector-specific scorecard takes consideration of what the one-way system is, if it's impractical, then the person running that event would have to comply with a sector-specific risk assessment and identify how they're going to mitigate the risk. So ours just a general one underneath, and then the other ones on top would be more specific. So like Sean with a hand up now, but Sean and 20 Club, I would assume at the moment you would still have to wear face masks. I don't know what's happening in cinemas or whatever, but you know, my sister's just been somewhere to a theatre and she was wearing a face mask. So you know, but that is different, because we had this dilemma with like the Fringe, because it's a public building, unless it's a. You know, I think the solution is.
Well, I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that, guys. Sean, can you like to ask a question before it gets lost?
Could the council thing be these things be offered as guidelines, and then you've advised what? Are you in the clear by advising, and then it's up to the organisation to? Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. I'm not responsible if people decide not to obey the one-way system. Neither would Paul be if he set it up for his event, but he set it up, and that's what I'm saying. At least we have the baseline one which covers us.
That's it. I appreciate that. I've just been to a 3-day event up in Bethesda in Neuadd Ogwen, which is a very similar setup to the town hall. Impossible to have a decent one-way system there because you've only got one main door. So people, and the bar is in between there and the auditorium. No face mask, no social distancing. It was a grand one, but you just had to sign the paper. For the Fringe, for instance, we're going one stage further, where actually we will know the name of every person in that building before we actually open the doors to anybody, because we're taking confirmation through email, so they can't get in without a valid email address.
Could, like for the stairs, you have stewards top and bottom, and then only let people up or down if that it was clear.
Yeah, that would be up to you, Shan, in your event. What I've done with the Fringe, I said it's up on the right. If you're in the balcony, you go through the hall up this balcony stairs, and then you come back down the back stairs. So that way is one way all the time.
Yeah.
If you go for a smoke, you go down the back stairs. You got the little side door between the two buildings. Then you come back in and go up the right-hand side. So that maintains that one-way system. The only one-way system we're doing away with is by the toilets, and then we're just operating a keep left system there. So that way we don't have to go through the kitchen, because we consider the kitchen and the changing rooms at the back private to the performers that we have there.
The other thing is, of course, that the organising group, in this case, the Fringe that we're talking about, are responsible in law to ensure the safety of their customers or their participants. So if there was a hotspot, as long as your risk assessments are thorough enough and you've taken reasonable precautions, then you're covered. And I don't think it would fall on us either as a council.
No.
I have submitted my documents today to Gareth. Actually, I don't know if you've had time to see them yet, Gareth.
Yeah, I've looked at them. Yeah, they're good. No, so I said I think we're singing from a similar hymn sheet.
Oh yes, definitely.
Not that's the same one. You know, we've got a duty of care to do that, and it's statutory still. It's still a statutory requirement as a provider of an entertainment facility, shall we say, multi-purpose. And that's the dilemma. If you're just a dance club, nightclub, you just have the one system, but we've got so many different users. That's the problem. So you have a baseline, what you're expecting everybody to try and adhere to, and then these sector-specific have now kicked in. So that's what we'd expect to see a risk assessment based on that. And then that I think gives us the paper trail should anything happen, that we've all tried to do our best.
We have indeed. Mr. John Palmer.
The only thing that I was going to recommend is that you've got your example too. Mrs. Jones has her daughter's 18th party, or perhaps a wedding reception, that we do have a model risk assessment for people that aren't used to doing it.
Yeah, that's right. Let's put that in there.
Yeah.
So,
well, as I said, John, these sector-specific things are quite good now. So that would be an event. Yeah, it would fall as an event because they'd want drinks and everything. Yeah. So as I said, because what we didn't want, and thankfully, I checked it with licensing, because I had this dilemma of like the Fringe having to either have tables and chairs so they could offer drinks and people sit down and then have to put a mask on to go and dance, or is it a public building? But we've got although at first they didn't want to commit, but now we've got an agreement that as we've got a premises license and we can sell alcohol, then for when there's a bar there with a licensee running the bar, it's regarded as a hospitality venue, and then the hospitality venue regs apply.
What I've done with ours, Gareth, is the cards that are recommended by government for the different events. There's one for an event, there's one for hospitality, and one for a nightclub.
Yeah.
I've taken all those three and taken worst case scenario from every one of them to apply to our rules and regulations.
Yeah, as I said, it's just it's having caught COVID last week and on isolation. I don't think what you do helps, to be honest.
No,
so God knows where I got it, but it's
you've been out nightclubbing. That's what you've been doing.
Probably got it in the town hall. But no, it's just to make. I'm just saying, it's just we've got our paperwork, we've sorted, and then top trumps. The specific ones will come in, and then they will. If it says it's impractical for this event, for this one way to work this way, this is our mitigation to allow us to do it, and that's fine.
And I'm going to open a book that says at the end of this month that all the regulations have disappeared.
They will.
Well, yeah.
Or there'll be more.
There might be more.
More
in Scotland.
The biggest problem is probably like the Christmas festival, isn't it? Because that's random people milling around.
Yeah, exactly.
It's off if it's used like that.
But in that case, the Christmas festival are responsible for working out how to keep their customers safe.
Almost certainly this year it'll be a reduced Christmas festival. We've not decided what we're doing yet, but I can't imagine it's going to be anything on the scale of what we had before.
Well, we have got Wales Ambulance coming along to, I think, 2 of our events on the Saturdays to offer advice on testing and distance and stuff. So
good.
Make people aware.
Because you can have every time I go to the gym in Plasmada, not that I'm being super fit or anything, I'm just carrying on this cardiovascular stuff that bypass. Anyway, on the desk there's a big stack of these instant jobbies,
the tests, yep.
I forget what the not the PCR,
lateral flow tests.
The lateral flow tests. You've got it in one with the help yourself sign stuck up by them, so they're freely available at the moment. If anybody wants to shove a load in an event, it wouldn't go on this, would it?
No.
No.
Well, you can request them for events, I think, anyway, can't you?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
So what
Well,
about
should we
his
just-
recommendations then?
Well, I think. Let's see what you said.
Well,
Well, I mean, the first one is that I am being left out of rulemaking because they're not our rules. It's just a risk assessment. But I perhaps adopt what Sean said. We could turn them into guidance, guidance for the general use, if you prefer that, and then concentrate more on the fact that you've got a, the sector specific, just general stuff about, maintain your social distance if you can. Don't get too close, all the stuff they're generally saying now. So I'm quite happy to amend that document because there was a review last week, so I do it every time they review it. I can peg back on the sort of one-way system and say people,
are
encouraged to, not mingle and not collect and try and avoid and keep away from each other as much as you can and all that. And then the set, then the set of rules would be those sector-specific ones which are produced by the Welsh Government.
Yeah, those are the law we have to abide by. Aren't they?
Yeah.
So if you're happy, I'm happy to basically agree with that. That we change them from like rules to general guidance and support, and then just focus on the sector-specific if everybody's happy with that.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
It's the last thing we want to do is upset anybody or any potential of the building, isn't it?
Yeah.
Make
Okay.
it as easy as possible.
So I'll second that then.
Yeah. So somebody needs to resolve to exclude the press and public, which we haven't got yet.
Yes, can we?
I resolve that we
please?
exclude the public.